Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing good. So, as a part of our last Liquibase tutorial series, we learned about creating functions using Liquibase chain set. Now, in this lecture, we will learn about run always and run on change attribute in the chain set. Okay, so let's start. So let's first check the Liquibase documentation. So in the Liquibase documentation, you have to go here on the doc.liquibase.com, and inside that you can go in changelog, and then inside you can go to the attribute. So you can see these are changelog attributes. These are many change. We are going to see run always and run on change. Okay. So if you click on run always, so you can see there is a documentation about run always. So run always says you can use the run always attribute to execute a change set every time you make a database deployment, right? So whatever change set you marked as run always equals to true, by default it is false. So if you mark it run always equals to true, so it will deploy every time whenever you do that particular database deployment, right? Even if it has run before. Okay. So whenever a run always change set is run, okay, so existing row for the change set in the database change log table are updated with a new execution date, deployment ID and MD5 checksum, right? So we'll deploy with run always, and we'll check that these things, execution date, deployment ID and MD5 checksum gets updated or not, right? So this is the run always documentation. Let's see the example. So we have here example. Let's go in XML example. So you can see how we are defining the run always equals to true. So you have this change set, right? So in the change set you have ID, you have author. So you have to add one more attribute, run always equals to true, right? Then this change set will run every time whenever you do deployment, right? Similarly, there is a run on change. Okay. So run on change is the run on change set attributes runs the change the first time it is detected and each time the change set is modified, right? So if you mark any change set as run on change equals to true, by default it is also false. So if you can make change in that change set, and it will detect that change and it will run that change set whenever there is any change in that change set, right? So that is about run on change equals to true. And how we use that? So similarly in the change set, right? So you have change set author ID, and you can use run on change equals to true. By default it is false, right? So let's see the demo. Okay. So this is my Postgres folder. Okay, let me go in my Postgres folder. So this is my Postgres Liquibase folder, right? And we have Java folder, then operations changelog. Here our all changelog are there. So in the last lecture we had created this app changelog function release 1.0 1.0, right? And in that we had created two functions, right? So these are the two functions, right? One was create department wise employee function, and second was this one, employee detail dynamic bind variable function, right? So these two function we created in employee database, right? So let's check our employee database. So this is our employee database. In that we can see these two functions are there, right? And let's check the database change log. So this is the database change log. So in the database changelog, you can see these are the change set IDs in database changelog. One is for employee detail dynamic variable function, and another is department wise employee function, right? And these are marked as executed. ID is 17 and 18, right? Date is 2nd of October, right? And yeah, so what we'll do, let's copy this change set and keep it in one notepad, and we'll compare after using run always and run on change, and then we'll compare this change set that what has changed. Okay, so let me just format it little bit quickly. So okay, so I'll just do the spacings so that you guys can see it properly, right? So this is my first chain set, then this is my second chain set, right? So let me just format it quickly. The ID is 17 executed, right? This is MD5 checksum for this, then this. So this is MD5 checksum, right? And this is the date, right? This is the date. So now what we'll do, we'll just go in our this changelog function and let's mark it as run always equals to true, right? So how we'll do that? Just I'll do space and I'll write run always equals to true, right? TRUE, right? And just one thing to note, it is in camel case. That means first R, later you can see that is a small case, and then from A it is a capital case later, right? So run always. That's how the camel case, no syntax is there. So this way, run always is always written as a camel case. Okay. So run always is true. I have marked this one. Okay, and let's just save it. Okay, so let's make just for one function as run always true, that is this function. Okay, let's open our PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, and let's execute the change set. Okay, so let me just make it enlarge little bit. Hmm. So let me just copy my Liquibase change set command. So I'll first cd to the change log path, right? And then I'll run my Liquibase command, right? So Liquibase command is same. So we are deploying in employee database, right? And username and password is there. Then JDBC jar is there. The path of jar is there, right? So let me do enter. Okay. So now let's see. Okay, so you can see there is one run, right? We marked run always as true in one function. So there is run one and it has deployed that function. Okay, so let me just go back and check the change log. Okay, so now you can see this one, the function which we marked, right? So what was the function? Function was employee detail dynamic bind variable function, right? So this function, this is the change log, right? Now you can see the change log has changed, right? So you can see the date has 12th of October, right? And execution type is rerun, right? Because it will always rerun that execute change set, whatever you marked run always as true. So let me just compare it this with, let me just paste it here and let's compare what are the things I changed, right? Let me just format it quickly for you guys to see it properly, right? So let me do that quickly. Okay, now it's done, right? So you can see no till here till 17 it was 17, now the change set is 21, right? So earlier it was 17, now the order is 21, right? It was executed earlier first time when it ran, now it's a rerun, right? Even the okay change set is same, MD check 5 sum is same, right? Okay, and yeah, and I think this deployment ID is changing, right? So it was 944, now 308, right? So you can see these are the changes. So you see when I did not change, I did not do any change in this function. I just marked it at run always as true. That means whenever we'll do database deployment, this change set will always run and your no all the dates respective to that change set will get updated, right? So you can see this is the today's deployment, 12th of October, right? Earlier it was 2nd of October, right? So whenever there will be fresh deployment, so every it will just do that deployment, right? So whatever change set you think that you always need a deployment, right? Whenever you do a deployment, so you always want to deploy that particular change set, so you marked it as run always equals to true, right? So this was the run always example. Now let's see run on change, right? So there is second function called department wise employee function. So what we'll do, we'll mark it as run on change equals to true, right? So if before doing that, let's do one thing. Let's make some change in this function and and do not increment any version number. Okay, so generally what we'll do, if we make any change in this function, suppose I want to just cut this or I let me just format it. So what I'll do, I'll just format this little bit. Okay, so let me just format this. Okay, and let me just save it. Okay, so even formatting is considered a change in this change set, right? So only, so now if I'll deploy, it should give me the error. Okay, so let me show you that error. Okay, so let me just run it again. Okay, so run on change equals to 1, row affected 1. Okay, okay. So let me just check. Department voice employee function is there. Okay, so it has not run anything, right? Okay, okay. So let me make some changes. Let me just cut this one, cut this arrays info in which we are printing the statement, right? So let me just cut it and let's keep it here for now, right? Okay, so this was the change made in this function, right? And let me just save it now. Okay, now let's try to redeploy. So you can see there is one error, right? In this function, create department voice employee function. Earlier it was this, so there is a validation, right? Validation failed exception, right? So that means if you are making any change in the function, right? So you have to increment the change set, right? So there is one way you can increment this change set and then do deployment. Then there will be new change set created with this ID, right? So that is one way. Or second way is marked as run on change equals to true. Okay. So if I make run on change equals to true, run on change equals to true, right? Then I don't need to increment this change set. I don't need to change the ID. I can make all the changes in this function and it will always deploy this change set with the same ID, right? So this is the use of run on change, right? So now let me just save it and let me just give a try. Let me just give a try on this to do the deployment. Okay, so you can see it has successfully deployed, right? It has successfully deployed. Now let's go ahead and check the change log, right? And one thing to note, why it is giving two run, because there is one run from run always, right? So first function which we make as run always, so this is always getting deployed. Along with that one, this function is getting deployed in which we made change and we marked it as run on change equals to true, right? So that's why we see there is two run. Now let's go ahead and check this department wise function, right? Change set. So let me just copy and let me just paste it quickly so that we can compare what are the things I changed. So this is my earlier department wise function change set log. So let me just paste it. Let me just format it quickly. Okay. So let me just format it quickly for you guys so that we can compare with the earlier change set log, right? So now it is formatted. So you can see this is the previous one, create department wise function, right? So till here it is correct. The date has changed, right? It's the 2nd of October. Now it's 12th of October, right? It has deployed. ID has also changed and execution type is marked as rerun, right? You can see the, even MD5 checksum has also changed for this one, right? And there is, yeah, this deployment ID has also changed, right? So you can see, so no, there are two ways. Either you make change in the dash in the your change set and mark it as run on change equals to true, so you don't need to increment the change set, or either you can increment the change set, so it will create a new line in your log, right? Right now it is overwriting the same line with the same ID, right? Only this date and execution types and everything gets updated, right? So if you change the ID, it will create a new line in your log with that ID. right? So we can do anything which we frequently change. We can mark it as run on change equals to true, and we can just keep making change and doing deployment. We don't need to increment the change set ID, right? So that is the example for run always and run on change, right? So run always, whatever you want to do deployment every time, whenever you do database deployment. Run on change, whenever you want to make change and you don't want to increment the change set ID, so it will deploy. It will deploy your change set with the same ID, right? So people generally know, if you don't they don't want to increment the change set, so they marked as run on change equals to true and run always equals to true as well. Okay, so I can mark run always equals to true, right? Run always equals to true. So generally people use like this, so they can make this change also every time whenever they make change, right? So run on change will take care of that, right? And it will always do deployment if I have not make any change, because I have marked run always equals to true. So I can use both together, right? And I've also shown you, if you make any change and you don't have run on change equals to true, then you mandatory have to increment the change set ID, right? Otherwise you get validation error, right? So I hope you guys understood the concept of run always and run on change in Liquibase, right? So if you guys like this lecture, please subscribe my channel. Thank you guys.